Well, yeah, I shouldn't be careful getting into this subject with you, but I don't know how to be careful with it because I'm really, oh, I, and I want to say, and I'm dealing with a very big issue here, and I want to admit in advance there are circumstances, there are nuances that are not so simple in this issue. But the fundamental that I'm going to talk about is pretty goddamn simple. And 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 the examples I use are so pretty straightforward. You know. Anyway, it's about I guess I got the thinking about this what is it? Day before yesterday, I think I was with a really new assistant. She's 27. She's married, just husband is no issues. She actually just came to my place to get back from the nearby hospital I use. And she said to her 91-year-old dad there, 91-year-old granddad is in hospital, and uh, he went in for, to have a cancer removed from his stomach. And he can hardly hear or speak, but she said that when I guess she was there when he went to the hospital, and they were sort of communicating by writing. He wrote her something. He says, "Please let me die. Please let me die." But and all the family from different parts of Vietnam are there. And but my even if she was able or willing to, my assistant, she's not, there might be somebody, it probably is somebody in the family that I don't know how the laws are here in Vietnam, that they can just at least not even have him go through the operation or check him out and do something, to and assist him. But they essentially, forced him to have this operation. And it's all, everybody understands it in some sense, like why we do this shit, It's, it's so horrible, And so anyway, um, I mean, there's reasons about this. Mostly has to do with the old ethics and the house from good and bad. When we prioritize, always keeping going and keeping going and keeping going. You never give up. Hey, God, yeah, yeah. Don't people know when to quit? There's a big problem with my mother. So that's an issue. And then another issue is like some sort of like, it's, I don't know, whole religious. I mean, they would particularly have that maybe here in Vietnam, about it's on a man's place to take, what God gave us. But it's like the purpose of life is to be happy. And when you get to a point where it's no longer possible, it's just pain and suffering, God. And hey, sure, you could argue. That's another issue we can argue. We always argue, well, if you kept going. People do that with marriages, We can always argue if there could be a chance. But nobody plays. If we're smart about playing life, we don't play that way. We look at the risks this way, and we, and depending upon the issues, and of course, yes, it is a one-way street to go out, so it's the biggest one-way street of all. It's basically a decision to end the possibility of these fun games we have in life. But that's, as far as I can tell, it's only reason to be alive, to enjoy the happiness and joy and fighting. And this man, he's past that, and it's and another reason is that like there's the issue of and also just the idea of and the fact that the idea of what's right and wrong is separated from cost and benefit. That's the horror of it. And also that the extent that you're in the right, wrong, blame thing, that it just it just destroys your sense of assessment of things, you know. You see the horror that's being perpetrated right in front of our eyes, you know, and you know, and I know that people like him, they want to care for him, and they're obviously there, and maybe some of them, but and maybe even some of them, I've heard people say they want somebody to not die for them. I mean, what's I mean, I it's hard for me to understand why if somebody wants to die, but they're holding on because they can't, you know, they don't really want to live for themselves. They just don't want to upset somebody that wants them to keep living. You know, God, what sort of love is that to have somebody? Uh, anyway, and you know, this also better situation. At least, you know, my mother is maybe something, you know, she's the most amazing one person of my life, you know, and everything I time I came to Asia, you know, I always went back to be with her towards usually in late October of each year, and I was back there in 2012, and when I was there, I could see I mean, she could still get around to the solution when so much suffering, and she's even doing her persistent stuff, going to this rehab stuff, and even so, she admitted she really was so uncomfortable, and she still even with herself. I don't know what she just said. Hey, I'm not going to go there. But anyway, but we were driving, and she said she just said she wanted to die. She was ready to die. And because I was driving her around, and I said I didn't know how I would do it, but I said, Mom, I don't know whether anything I can do, but if you think that I can possibly help you, if you want to ask me, I'll help you know whatever. And so it turned out that 3 weeks later, you know, she's living in the mountains of Tennessee and near my brother. He sort of checks in on me. 3 weeks later, I got my mother. We found my mother, you know, dead. And later, my sister and I, knowing some sort of evidence about, we have pretty good reason she helped herself die. And you know, she was a nurse, and she was getting various medicines. I mean, she'd probably know what medicines to say about it. Oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. But, you know, if she had asked me, I don't know what exactly I would have done, but I would have flown back to them, you know, and I would figure something out, you know, what, you know, being with her because she was still cognizant. She was still and to assist her, you know, if she been dying. And I know what I'd be doing is illegal. Yeah. And I know there'd be a risk, but I'd be willing to, okay, I'd be willing to take it. Okay. And I was even just thinking, I was going to imagination, well, what if it happened that way? I did take it. She would, you know, she was sad, so she wouldn't suffer anymore. And then, so let's suppose that I got arrested for it, and even brought to court. But I don't know, what would happen. But I knew I would even go this far, like so that, say, of course, you know, you have in the U.S. you at least have a right to defend yourself. So I would just get up, whether it before a jury or a judge or something. I would say, look, I know what I did broke the little law. I know it, you know, there's no denying that, you know. And if I had to do it again, over again, even though I would bring it before here, I would do it again. Okay. And you have the power, you know, to have them go to jail. I understand that. And you may feel like you're going to because whatever reason you have, you know, you can do that. And but I would suggest to can you know, look, I'm not saying the law might be helpful in other circumstances, but in this circumstances, my mother was in pain. She wanted to die, and I love her so much, and you know, I did it. And if you want to, if you put me in jail or whatever, I don't know. That would be a price I'll be happy to pay. I would prefer not to pay it, but I'd be happy to pay for, for my mother not being in suffering. So I'm going to just say step back and say some bigger things about what's going on in the world, because this is what I want to say, this is a horror that's around the world. It's a little hard to get statistics on this, but it's like, hey, this idea of like, and the way the laws are and the hospitals are and the system is and everything else. Sure, some countries allow certain situations, allow certain things where if you go through certain procedures, there you can do things. Okay. Of course, if you just have enough control yourself and you have a way that you're able and willing to do it, you could just, once you do it yourself, there's nothing they can do about it, But in terms of like being allowed to help somebody, in those situations, or like that whole issue, and also it being okay to die, then you don't have the whole line for others or any reason, like you had whatever the great life you've had, don't make it like don't have the ending be any worse than it is already, so to speak. But anyway, let's look at some rough statistics. I just did some research. It's hard to know, like in terms of, I'm just talking about in terms of older in life. Like you're just like for most people, it's at least today, right now, for most people, at least the way it is, you said they're in a declining era, and like they're a level of like unhappiness or pain or suffering. Like if you ask them, hey, if you sort of died painlessly today, would you like that to happen? Like what percentage or what number of people in the world right now might say yes, if that were asked, and it's hard to know, but doing a little bit of research, come up with a figure of 200 million people. Plus, to put a lot of leeway in it, plus or minus a million others. 200 million. Because even in my own life, I've known about at least 10 people, that were in that situation, but they had the difficulty of the whole system might go on. I mean, so last 8 years of her life, she was totally bedridden, and just no joy, just kept, marriage life and kept alive for all those reasons, Anyway, but it's a huge figure, huge figure. I mean, 200 million. I mean, it's a different category, but that's the number of people who've died in wars since 1901. All the people who died in wars is equal to 200 million. That's a huge number. And so it's so much suffering here, We got people. I don't know. I know you have these things about persistence and can't give up, and but it's open your eyes to the purpose of life is to be happy. Nobody fundamentally can dispute that. When the chances of it because of the pain and suffering just are not there anymore, and no significant chance of being there. It's God to just, hey, I know the how to and in each specific situations, it's got to be worked out, you know, and there are details to this. But the fundamentals, you know, I have one more thing to say. I noticed, you know, since Dwight, you know, I've come into Dwight's life, you know, his little son now, you know, and what was happening to him is like he's loved people before, but he's like loving people twice as much now. And by the way, I'm not justify anything about how much somebody cares. I don't think there's a problem with fundamental motivation. It's just a question of like, is it working and how to and all that stuff, you know? But maybe I just was, if you will, motivated. I'm plenty motivated already to just try to figure this out and invite you to figure it out and maybe question in your own mind and before the laws or whatever gets fixed. Let's do what we can do until then, you know. Thank you.